Number 1.
Cooke was visiting her parents' home in the North Lake subdivision of Georgetown, Texas in early 2002. She was on winter vacation from her school at San Diego Mesa College in San Diego, California. She was last seen by her family at 8 a.m. January 10, 2002, when her mother left for work. She was still asleep at this time, on the couch. Cooke departed from her family's residence for her daily 4-mile run during the morning hours that day, sometime after her mother left. She is believed to have started her run at approximately 9:30 a.m. She was last seen between 11 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. near Neches Trail, which is just 100 to 200 yards from her family's residence. Cooke never returned to their residence and has not been heard from again. She was missed at 3 p.m. that day when her father came home to take her shopping and could not find her. Witnesses told authorities that an unidentified male was driving a late-model white or blue Chevrolet Camaro or Pontiac Trans Am with white or black stripes along the hood and the trunk in the area of Cooke's disappearance. He was reportedly speaking to another female jogger at the time. The man is described as being in his late teens to early 20s with slicked-back black hair. He had a dark complexion and may have been Hispanic. Some witnesses reported seeing a man inside the vehicle, which traveled along Navajo Trail and turned southbound onto Neches Trail. Sketches of the unidentified male are posted with this case summary. Some witnesses claim to have seen two men inside the car. Authorities are also searching for information concerning a white pickup truck that was seen in the North Lake subdivision on January 10. The vehicle may have had a wide dark-colored stripe across its lower portion. Witnesses stated that the sports car and the truck stopped along the road to speak to the jogger shortly after Cooke's disappearance. A sketch of an unidentified male reportedly seen near the female jogger is posted with this case summary. Investigators announced that one of the possible unidentified witnesses contacted authorities voluntarily 1 week after Cooke vanished. The individual was cleared of any involvement in her case. In August 2006, Michael Keith Moore confessed to Cooke's murder. A photograph of Moore is posted below this case summary. He stated he attacked Cooke while jogging, knocked her unconscious, drove her somewhere and raped her. After murdering her, he wrapped her body in a tarp, weighted it with rocks, and threw it into Matagorda Bay. Moore has an extensive criminal history and has spent nearly all of his adult life in prison. His father stated he began to get into trouble with the law at the age of 13, and many of his known offenses involve sexual misconduct and/or violence. At the time of his confession in Cooke's case, he was already in police custody after being convicted of murdering a pregnant woman. He agreed to plead guilty to Cooke's murder in November 2006 in exchange for a sentence of life in prison, but in court Moore reneged and pleaded not guilty in Cooke's case. Moore told the media he had been toying with authorities when he confessed to killing Cooke and that he got special treatment in prison in exchange for his cooperation. He stated he had nothing to do with her disappearance and the police should have known that. Prosecutors announced that he will go to trial for Cooke's murder. Her remains have not been found, but investigators believe Moore's confession was accurate. Cooke was an accomplished cross-country runner at the time of her disappearance. All of her personal belongings were left behind at her family's home, where her parents and younger sister then resided. Her father died of natural causes in November 2014, at age 59. At the time of her disappearance, Cooke was a student at Mesa Junior College in California and was planning to transfer to a college in Los Angeles, California to study fashion design. She has no history of leaving her family home without warning. She always left a note saying where she would be going. Foul play is suspected in her case due to the circumstances involved.
Number 2.
Cosby's wife got up at 6 a.m. on June 2, 1998 and discovered he had left the family's lakeside cabin in Sweetwater, Texas, leaving the front door open. Witnesses told authorities he was walking along a road off Interstate 20, north of the Lake Dam and recreational area and away from Sweetwater, on the morning of his disappearance. He has never been heard from again. An extensive search produced no clues as to his whereabouts. Cosby was employed as a shipyard worker in California for many years before returning to his hometown of Sweetwater in the 1980s. His relatives canvassed the area near the shipyard after his disappearance, hoping to locate evidence as to his fate. The business has since ceased operations. Investigators believe that Cosby may have received a ride from a passing motorist who did not realize he was a missing person. He may have attempted to travel to the West Coast. Cosby's wife said that her husband complained of discomfort due to gout in his left foot during the day prior to his disappearance. The pain did not affect his walking abilities. Cosby is described as an independent person. He developed dementia after suffering a stroke in 1997. All of his immediate family who lived in the area at the time of his 1998 disappearance have either died or moved away in the years since then. Cosby's case remains unsolved.
Number 3.
Andrea Cotten had a baby at 16 years old. She was from a small town south of Dallas, Texas, and seemed to drift from a cousin's house to her mother's, to her boyfriend's who was 30 years older than her when she had their baby. Andrea wasn't a bad person, but struggled with abandonment issues and desperately sought out love. She had taken to alcohol and marijuana, wasn't attending school, and sometimes stole the alcohol from people. Her dad was in prison, her child's father was soon headed to prison for a robbery, her mother's boyfriend was a parolee, and neither her mother nor her boyfriend wanted Andrea to be with a man, much less have a baby with someone who was of a different race. And then she disappeared. It was January 22, 2004 and she had visitation with her daughter, scheduled for the next day. She wouldn't have missed that. The details of her disappearance are sketchy. Some say she was left leaving in a white van or truck with 2 Hispanic males, some say it was a gold car and 1 unknown male. Others say it was murder. Was she killed for having a mixed-race child? CPS had taken the child, who is now an adult, but no one seems to know why they took her or who called, though the possibility has been floated that her own family called CPS because they were upset about the race problem. The family did refuse to take the child because of that, but she was adopted by a loving family and whisked away from the mess of drama Andrea had to endure. Was she killed by the man who committed statutory rape and got her pregnant? Or the mother's boyfriend who didn't like people of certain races? Was it the man who was mad that Andrea stole her beer, or a local who has supposedly confessed repeatedly to Andrea's relatives? What about the man who failed multiple polygraph examinations? This is almost all undocumented word-of-mouth small-town gossip, but there is one fact: Andrea's been missing for almost 18 years. Almost no one knows what happened to her on January 22, 2004 in Corsicana, Texas, a town put on the map by the Netflix hit series Navarro Cheer, or the nationally known Collins Street Bakery and its famous fruitcakes. What happened to Andrea? And why won't anyone talk? Can this many people really keep a secret forever?
Number 4.
Amber was seated inside of a pickup truck in Dallas, Texas on December 26, 1983. The truck belonged to her mother's live-in boyfriend, James Britt Monroe. It was parked outside of McDonald's grocery in the 800 block of Murdoch Road, 2 blocks from their home, at approximately 9:45 a.m. that morning. Monroe says he went inside the store to purchase soft drinks and paper towels and left Amber in the truck alone for 2 to 5 minutes. When he returned, she had vanished. Amber has never been heard from again. 3 weeks after Amber's disappearance, police filed murder charges against Monroe in connection with her case. There was evidence that she was abused before her disappearance. Various people saw bruises on her, and there's a photograph of her with a hand-shaped bruise on her face. Amber's mother, Stephanie Hughes, also called Stephanie Crum or Stephanie Hughes Crum, initially told police her daughter had been very cold, with her eyes open and unblinking, when she checked on her at 9:30 p.m. on Christmas night, and she believed Amber was dead. Hughes subsequently recanted and said Amber had been alive on Christmas night, and the police had pressured her into making her previous statement. Another witness said he spoke to Monroe on the phone on the morning of December 26 and heard Amber talking in the background. A judge dismissed the charges against Monroe a short time later on grounds of insufficient evidence, and they were never refiled, although police said he gave inconsistent statements about the events leading up to Amber's disappearance, and they didn't believe he disclosed everything he knew. Monroe maintains his innocence in Amber's case. He and Hughes parted ways after Amber disappeared and Hughes moved to Indiana. She and Amber's father had separated in 1982, and their divorce was final on December 1, 1983. He was in Kentucky at the time. He had never been very much a part of his daughter's life and was quickly ruled out as a suspect in her disappearance. In 1986, investigators checked the fingerprints of a girl who was abandoned in California that same year. The girl matched Amber's general physical description and was about the right age. Their fingerprints did not match, however. In 2007, authorities announced they considered David Elliott Penton a person of interest in Amber's disappearance and in the disappearances and murders of several other young girls, including Angelica Gandara, Ara Johnson and Shannon Sherrill. A photograph of Penton is posted below this case summary. He has been incarcerated in an Ohio prison since 1987. He also signed a plea agreement admitting to the murders of 3 girls in Texas. The Texas victims disappeared over a period of 18 months in the Dallas area and ranged in age from 4 to 9 years old. Penton was also convicted of manslaughter in the child abuse death of his own infant son in 1984. He fled while free on bond pending the outcome of his appeal and remained at large until 1987, when he was charged with the murder of a friend's 9-year-old niece in Ohio. He was later convicted of this crime. Penton's cellmates went to investigators and claimed he had implicated himself in the disappearances of Ara, Amber and Angelica. He has not been charged in connection with any of these disappearances, however. All the cases, including Amber's, remain unsolved.
Number 5.
Born on July 26, 1968, Jayne was adopted by John and Judy Winship when she was 8 years old. Unfortunately, much of Jayne's history could not be confirmed prior to her time in Brenham. John and Judy Winship declined requests to be interviewed for this story. The murky details of her background are fitting for the central character who is, at times, absent both physically and from the minds and memories of the supporting cast. The timeline is marked with brushstrokes of turbulent trials and tempests, including a divorce, chaotic custody battle and suspicious deaths. Each event is like a puzzle piece that can't quite be placed in the bigger picture. However, interviews and available open records help to shed light on the tumultuous years leading up to and following her disappearance. Jayne moved to Brenham in the late 1980s and settled into an apartment leased by Amy Davis, who also owned the former Brenham bindery here. "She came to me because I had apartments to rent," Amy told the Banner Press. "She seemed like a nice kid. I thought she'd be a good tenant. She had a dog, and it was a big point of contention. I let her move to another property I owned, but when I came to collect the rent the next month, she had moved out and left the dog to live with a man she'd met. However, she soon met the youngest son of the Davis family, Stephen Clay. It happened rather quickly that she and Stephen ended up together," former Brenham bindery office manager Charlotte Wright said. "Jayne was a sweet girl. She came from a good, religious family. They were just nice people. They didn't care for Stephen, but it was not their choice." Amy expressed similar feelings toward Jayne based on the prior incident. "She was a highly intelligent girl, and like a lot of intelligent people, she was also quite manipulative and very good at it," she said. "I told him in private later about her moving out and leaving the dog and kind of warned him, but boys never pay much attention to what their mothers say about girls." According to Washington County records, Jayne was 21 years old when she and Stephen, 27, were married on February 1, 1990. "As far as I could tell, they were really happy together for a while," Amy said. The newlyweds lived here before their son Johnny Clay was born in Houston on October 5. Several Brenham bindery contractors and other local residents befriended the young mother in this relatively short time. They described Jayne as nice, friendly, kind-spirited, trusting and a little naive, considering the circumstances surrounding her disappearance. Less than a year after their son was born, Stephen and Jayne separated on September 12, 1991, according to a divorce petition filed in the Washington County 335th District Court. Jayne decided it was not the life she wanted, Wright said. According to Amy, her daughter-in-law left Stephen for another man. She moved in with another boy, so Stephen filed for divorce, but he still wanted to get her back if he could, she said. He still loved her. After a hearing on October 24, a judge awarded Jayne temporary sole custody of Johnny Clay, while his father was granted visitation rights and ordered to pay child support. With the divorce pending, Stephen traveled to Jayne's Houston residence on October 31 and raped her at gunpoint, Jayne told police. According to Harris County records, Stephen was charged with felony sexual assault on November 5 and was arrested by the Houston Police Department. He was later released on a $25,000 bond. He was taken into custody again in 1992 following a second-degree enhanced felony charge of delivery of marijuana in Washington County. Standing before the 21st Judicial District Court, he pleaded guilty to the drug charge and no contest to felony sexual assault. The judge sentenced Stephen to 10 years in state prison. By the time Stephen was admitted to the High Tower unit in Dayton on March 16, 1993, Jayne had taken steps to move on with her life in Houston and filed a motion to sign a decree of divorce. In those early months, she was living with a new boyfriend while still coordinating visits between the 2-year-old Johnny Clay and his grandmother Amy and his uncle John Allen at their home in the Washington community. Several witnesses say that despite a strained relationship and the alleged potential for retaliation against Jayne for pursuing the sexual assault charge, it was important for her son to have a relationship with the Davises because she herself was adopted and placed great emphasis on family. She felt that she needed to let Johnny Clay know his other family, Wright said, highlighting the young mother's kind and naive nature. Jayne was afraid, it was a feeling, that there was the possibility something could happen to her. I still don't understand why she put herself in that position. She could have cut off all ties. Amy interpreted Jayne's motivations in a different light. I tried to keep in touch with her, and she kept in touch with me because she wanted a babysitter, she said. She was manipulative. She wanted things her way. She wanted to get as much as she could. She wanted time for herself. I was just a free babysitter. According to Wright, on Friday, April 30, 1993, at approximately 3 p.m., Jayne called the Brenham Bindery. Wright claimed Jayne told her she had no money and needed to relay a message to John Allen that she was ready to be picked up in Houston. It was a pre-arranged visit and John was expecting the call, she said. Jayne did not have access to a working vehicle at the time and was relying on others to make the trips. Jayne was scheduled to return with Johnny Clay in Houston on May 3. Little did she know, Wright was possibly the last one to talk to Jayne. In fact, April 30, 1993 may have been the last day any known person saw or spoke to her in more than 26 years. Jayne Davis simply disappeared. Over the next 2 decades, various investigators from several law enforcement agencies, loved ones, friends, acquaintances and communities would struggle to find answers. John Winship filed a missing persons report with the Houston Police Department on May 8. Upon learning about Jayne's plans, HPD contacted the Brenham Police Department and the Texas Department of Public Safety Criminal Law Enforcement Division to conduct their own investigations as well. Conflicting accounts soon emerged regarding Jayne's plans and whereabouts that Friday. Rumors permeated throughout the small community. Witnesses were subpoenaed to testify before a Washington County grand jury on 2 occasions. No indictments were ever issued. No charges were pressed, no arrests made. From a legal standpoint, it's unclear if Jayne ever left Houston, or, if she did, where she was headed. A few days prior to her disappearance during a visit with Johnny Clay here at Jackson Street Park, Amy claims that Jayne announced her plans to work as a prostitute in Las Vegas and wanted to bring Johnny Clay with her. I told her this was a very bad idea. She gave me no explanation for why she wanted to move, Amy said. I don't know if it was totally made up to upset me or whether it was actually something she was thinking about doing. Amy asserts that the last time she spoke with her was on that fateful Friday, when she called and asked to be picked up by Amy, and not John Allen, as Wright claimed. She wanted me to come get her. I told her I couldn't, because I was working that day. She asked to send John and I said he has to go to Austin, which is in the opposite direction. He can't come get you, Amy said. There were never any plans for John to go pick up Jayne. John Allen categorically denies any involvement in her disappearance and also refutes Wright's and others' statements regarding the pre-arranged plans to pick up his sister-in-law in Houston that day. "I don't know who invented this story or where it came from," John Allen told the Banner Press. "She would not get in a car with me ever. She hated me. She hates our whole family." Further, he claims that he was out of town running an errand for the bindery business on April 30, 1993. "The day she disappeared in Houston, I was 200 miles away in Austin. I don't know where she is, where she went, or who she's with. I don't know if she's dead or not," he said, recalling the last alleged interaction he had with Jayne was in December of 1992, approximately 5 months before her disappearance. "I was leaving the office and she was arriving. We just nodded to each other. I don't know anything about where she went. I didn't have any contact with her."
Number 6.
The 10-year anniversary of the disappearance of 18-month-old Joshua Davis Jr. is approaching, and New Braunfels police are temporarily offering a $10,000 reward for information that leads to the arrest or grand jury indictment of the person responsible. On Tuesday, New Braunfels police announced on social media that they have been frustrated and disappointed in the level of cooperation from some members of the immediate family who have repeatedly lied and misled detectives in regards to Joshua's disappearance on February 4, 2011. The 2-foot-tall, 30-pound toddler was last seen at the family home in the 2600 block of Savannah Hill Circle in New Braunfels when temperatures outside were freezing and light snow and ice were covering the ground. Police have determined that 7 adults and 3 children, including Joshua, were inside the home the night Joshua disappeared. Initially, family members inside the home that night suggested that Joshua had wandered outside in the rural area near the house. "We firmly believe that someone who was in the home the night of the disappearance knows what really happened," New Braunfels Police Department spokesman David Ferguson said Tuesday. New Braunfels police said Tuesday that detectives continue to follow up on new leads 10 years later, but have accused the family of sending investigators off to investigate theories that they knew to be untrue, which took resources away from the investigation that could have been better used to help bring closure to this case. NBPD said one instance of the family's failure to help with the case was their initial claim that the family called 911 immediately after the boy's disappearance. However, police said investigators have confirmed that approximately 45 minutes to 1 hour elapsed from the time that Joshua allegedly disappeared to the time that the 911 call was made. Police also said that investigators know that illegal drugs were cleaned up and disposed of, and a family meeting was held prior to the 911 call being made. Joshua's mother, Sabrina Benitez, has previously said that she and her son were watching Toy Story when he walked away toward the front part of the house. She spoke with KSAT in 2016 and admitted that there was marijuana in the home that night, but that she believes her son is still alive. At the time, she said, "I want people to stop pointing the finger at me. Just like the cops don't know, nobody else knows what happened." New Braunfels police, however, say the family was being disingenuous with the media and continued to push a false narrative of abduction, which detectives have ruled out as a possible reason for Joshua's disappearance, based on statements made by the family in the hours after Joshua vanished. "We have had to deal with repeated lies or misleading to detectives, sending our detectives off to investigate theories that family members knew to be untrue," Ferguson said. According to detectives who are actively working on the case, they believe the key information needed to solve this case lies with members of the family that were in the home the night Joshua disappeared. This is not the first time that police have accused the family of misleading investigators. In 2016, Ferguson said, "While the family has been fully cooperative, we don't believe that the information they're giving us is fully truthful." Police are asking anyone with information about the toddler's disappearance to call Crime Stoppers at 800-3620-TIPS, 8477.
Number 7.
Davis was last seen at his family's home in Tyler, Texas on January 15, 2007. He was a senior at Texas A&M University in College Station at the time of his disappearance and was home for winter break. On January 14, Davis purchased a new jacket to wear at school He was due to return there the next day. He and his family all went to bed after he returned home from the store. When his parents woke up in the morning, Davis was gone. He is believed to have left around dawn. His metallic forest green and silver 26-inch frame, 24-gear 2005 model Expedition Specialized mountain bike disappeared with him. A photograph of a similar bicycle is posted with this case summary. He has never been heard from again, although there were unconfirmed sightings of him in the local area in the days after his disappearance. Davis maintained a high grade point average at college and studied chemical engineering and economics, but changed his major to Spanish a short time before he went missing. He is fluent in Spanish, has visited Mexico before, and plans spend a semester abroad in the future. He stopped going to most of his classes after Thanksgiving in 2006, however. The only class he continued to attend was Spanish, which he got an A in. Davis attended Tyler Junior College before transferring to Texas A&M. At the time of his disappearance, he lived in a dormitory-style unit at the Callaway Villas apartments off Marion Pugh Drive in College Station. He had 3 roommates, but was not close to them. His family stated he did not get out much, was not involved in extracurricular activities, and did not have a girlfriend that they knew of. Davis's parents stated he was depressed and withdrawn at the time of his disappearance and uncertain what he wanted to do with his life. His parents were concerned about his mental state and took him to see a therapist a short time before he disappeared, but the therapist believed his problems were not serious and he would get over them. Davis left behind a goodbye note for his parents. He stated he loved them and his leaving was no one's fault and indicated they would never see him again. His parents believe he may have traveled to a Latin American country, but he left his passport behind, as well as his cellular phone, car keys, money and wallet. Davis's passport has since expired and has never been renewed. He left behind his driver's license, but he may have a Texas state identification card. Authorities are uncertain whether Davis is deceased or whether he is alive and simply does not want to be found. His family believes he could be in the College Station area and may seek jobs as a Spanish tutor or short-order cook. His parents stated if he did not want to come back to them, they could accept that. They only want to know he is alive and safe. His case remains unsolved.